you're going to be tuning into this weekend's fight, here's a tip. Check out my partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. Upgrade your fight experience this weekend with the official sports betting partner of UFC. Are you new to DraftKings? Check this out. New customers that bet just $5 will instantly get $150 in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use the code SONNEN. DraftKings, the crown is yours. That's right. New customers can bet just $5 on anything and receive $150 in bonus bets instantly. DraftKings is giving new customers a shot to get in on the action all night long. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. DraftKings is the one-stop shop for all things daily fantasy where you have the chance to win cash prizes. Don't miss out on all the action this week at DraftKings. Download the DraftKings app today. Sign up using dkng.co/Sonnen or through my promo code SONNEN, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Sean Strickland is next for the world title. He will take on the winner of Adesanya Duplessis. This was made very clear by Dana. And quickly, the comments and quickly, the headlines came out that Whitaker and Chimaev is no longer a number one contenders match. And I just want to pump the brakes a little bit. You're interpreting that wrong. Both can be true. Now, there is a formula at the UFC, whether it's stated or not, that if you go back and you follow the time frames, Sean Strickland being announced the number one contender and being announced as the guy that will face the winner of the main event this Saturday. This is perfectly in line with how things are done. There is nothing off here. It does not take away, and I just read comments, and it's a misunderstanding, and it does surprise me when veterans of this sport miss this. When they don't look to history as the greatest trajectory to the future. I always miss it. So, okay, you got a world title fight, just so I can explain this to you. You have a world title fight coming up this Saturday. What's on the line? This is the most personal feud I have ever seen. No matter how short it is, right? I've seen one. Michael Chandler, Conor McGregor. This one's going on 2 years. Link doesn't change it. The heat on this, a white man from Africa, a black man from Africa, and the white man is claiming that he is the true African. Do you realize I am the only one that has explained that to you? Do you realize that topic feels like a landmine for people? But it's that hot. I can't really think of any. I'm trying to. If I was just to be creative, if this was a movie and I was writing a script so I could go off course, I could go off rules, I'd have no boundaries. I don't think I could write anything as hot as what I just said. Okay, world championship. Okay, comeback of Izzy. Like, we've got all of these pieces. We're missing one thing. Like, if we want a grand slam, we got a home run right now. But if we want a grand slam, what are they fighting for is also who's going to draw into, and to answer that question, you got to have a number one contender. That should be, and the rankings support, and this answer is right, Sean Strickland. So I'm just adding for you, history of the UFC. Got a title fight on Saturday. Prior to that, you announce who they draw into. Possibly you could do a face-off. Possibly you could get something organic there. Possibly you could start getting the press going in that direction. But this is all in line. There's nothing out of order here. Now, save that thought. Look down the road. Whitaker Chimaev, which according to articles and comments has just been demoted, is no longer a number one contenders fight. That's not correct. That's just not what happened. The announcement of Sean Strickland being next, the calendar lines up and supports this. Guys, you gotta understand, in this sport, the number one requirement is damage. So if you take that for what it is, you're going to assume that after Whitaker Chimaev, those guys are going to be banged up and need a little bit of time. So this is where Sean starts to come in. Now, of course, you don't know what's going to happen Saturday. We always have an asterisk next to every single comment of who's next. There's always an asterisk for when the title fight itself goes off. If something happens, that warrants a rematch, and we know we're going to rematch them. 99% of the time. And the only 1% is because of an injury. So barring injury, 99% of the time, when we know we're going to rematch them, we do it immediately. We don't put something in front of it. No, now we're going to get these guys back together. Have them go do this first. It doesn't work that way. It goes immediately. So now you don't have to have an argument. Strickland would go and fight the winner of Whitaker Chimaev. And one thing about this sport, it's why this is so important from a promotional standpoint. It's why it's so important and so helpful. I was really surprised when I saw comments taking that announcement as a demotion to Whitaker Chimaev. That is simply not what happened. Here's the deal. In this game, whatever you bring is on the line. All the chips are in. I came from a wrestling background, guys. That's not true. You win the Olympic championship, take a little break, get back into a couple of tournaments. It wouldn't matter how small they were in comparison to the Olympics. It wouldn't matter. You go out there, you start feeling out, start getting ready for whatever is next in your mind. That Olympic championship isn't on the line. You're a world champion within wrestling, the sport I came from. Each match you have, the world championship is not on the line. So in MMA, it's very different. Whatever you got is up for grabs. So let's just say you have a champion. His next fight, we don't need to discuss. We don't need to worry or wonder if his next fight will be for the world championship. Yes, it will be. And I know that seems obvious to you guys. I know that seems obvious, but that's the part that you're missing. Everything's a title once it becomes official. Sean Strickland is now the number one contender. You will not see a headline. After that statement, an appointment by Dana, you will not see a headline that mentions Sean Strickland and doesn't mention number one contender. That is a title, and it is his. And where that becomes relevant is, say something were to happen with Adesanya and Duplessis where we got to have a rematch, or that it delayed one of those guys, right? Say there's an unforeseen that happens. This happens in our sport every week to somebody. So it's a very realistic scenario. All right, great. Well, now if Whitaker Chimaev winner ends up getting on the docket with Sean Strickland, we don't have a conversation about number one contenderships. It's much like having a title fight. Sean Strickland would have the title of number one contender. That would be on the line. Are you following me with the importance of this? This is a very helpful thing to Whitaker versus Chimaev. Not to mention, it's down the road a little bit, right? I mean, that's down the road. You got to deal with that a little bit later. You could establish a number one contender there. Strickland's next, and the winner, we've seen that. That's a very new thing that started in 2023. Very new, where we would have two number one contenders at a time. We have two guys that are promised final fights, and we're going to hold them, and this guy's going to fight, and then this guy's going to come in next. It's a bit of a logjam. But it's a new concept. And when you have as many guys that have emerged, and you have as many events, it becomes a necessity at times. And I really just want to point that out for you. This is the right move. It's the right move, guys. Why have rankings? Why have a ranking system if we're not going to observe them? Sean Strickland, in any ordinary circumstance, would have gotten a rematch right away with Duplessis, but it was not an ordinary circumstance because the GOAT of 185 pounds was waiting in the wings, and he too could have cashed in and gone for an immediate rematch. And if Strickland had the belt, that's exactly what Adesanya would have done. Adesanya qualified, and we all have to agree to this, for a world title fight. It happens to be against Duplessis. That is not a side to Strickland. That's the part that guys have a hard time seeing through. Hey, what about me? What about this? You're missing. It's larger than that. It's for the belt. That's where Adesanya comes in. If you had the belt, you would be getting this. So don't act as though you're somehow being slighted. You're not. It's not about you. It's bigger than that. It's the championship, and right now, you ain't got it. And I share it from that perspective with you. It's a big deal. Sean Strickland's the right guy. It got announced. We really didn't have to wait this long, quite frankly. Sean Strickland, the night he beat Paulo Costa, that was the test. He becomes the guy. But you can't announce it that night because it wasn't made official yet that Adesanya's got Duplessis, and that's the fight that's going to happen. So then it's just confusing. Hey, Sean's the guy. Sean's done it. Sean is definitely the guy. But Izzy's going to do it, and then Sean will do it. You just lose people. So you wait. You do things in the correct order. But I don't want. See, I'm so proud of Robert Whittaker. Weird word to use, right? But I'm so proud of him for taking this fight with Chimaev. And I loved his strategy, and I love his thought process. This was his idea. He wanted to have it. He knew he became the number one contender. In fact, the reigning champion Duplessis also looked at that and said, yes, there would be no way to deny that. That would be the number one contenders match. And it still can be, is what I'm sharing for you. You can have multiple things that are accurate at the same time, but it could confuse the audience, which is the very reason that Sean Strickland, the night he became Paulo Costa and became, his next fight's going to be for the title. It doesn't get announced. It can't. There's an order. And if it would have been announced, and then you're trying to explain that Izzy's next, you go, wait a minute, number one contender means next, and you would lose everybody. So you got to do it in an order. There was nothing about the announcement of Sean Strickland, which was the right announcement. There was nothing about that affected Robert Whittaker and Chimaev's plan. There was also nothing about that announcement that affects Robert Whittaker and Chimaev's opportunity. And when you thought otherwise, you misunderstood.